You have to settle for the stupid fucking robot!
Last time on McD's Reviews, we went over the 2006 Bionicle set. Gotta be honest, it's probably one of the greatest lines in McDonald's history. They had good articulation for what it was supposed to be, immaculate detail, and still on top of that, still had nice functions. I mean, these are some of the best figures that McDonald's have ever made. Oh no, I didn't like that one very much. Can we use a different example? Can we use this one? I think that one's pretty cool. Wait, nope, they didn't even use that one in the set. I'm mad. Yes, I am in fact a 23-year-old man screaming about McDonald's toys. That's pretty much my life now. It could be worse. Could be complaining about Sonic. Now, there is one thing that Future Me has already pointed out. I don't really like the actual 2006 stuff. I find that the Toa are really uncanny and creepy and weird. And the Paraka, while I generally like them, a lot of them were overly gimmicky. I guess it's to differentiate them a little bit. But that wound up with some weird choices, like the red Paraka having a Vaki head as his left arm.
Wait a minute, is that the fucking Vaki?
So, it's not particularly one of my favorites. However, next they decided to make 2007. And I think most people can agree that 2007 was probably the best year for Bionicle. It probably has the best Toa because they have really good designs, and while not all of them are winners, like some people don't really like Hyuki, and I personally think Neparu's a little bit on the bland side, I'd still take any of those over, I don't know, no comma any day. Plus, while some of them do have a little bit of a breakage issue, at least they have shoulder articulation. Hell, at least these things have shoulder articulation. Combine that with the Baraki, which are tied with the Borak and the Paraka as some of my favorite villains, and you combine all that with the figures we've just looked at, man, this has sure got to be the best of the three, right? Okay, first up we have Toa Hahli, and yeah, we're not doing Jawler this time. This is the only Jawler figure that they ever made. Shame. But hey, you know what? This is a pretty good design for Hahli, and she does look a fair bit like Vakama, so hey, I guess it makes sense. Don't think she had any woes me issues though, so I guess we're pretty good. The design is overall pretty good, and I do like the fact they still managed to have a lot of green even though it's in the wrong spot. But there is a noticeable problem with this figure, and that is, it's in this weird stance and scale. I guess they tried to make them look a little bit more dynamic, which normally is fine with these toys because they don't really have that much articulation. But these ones do. I consider these to be just like average figures, and, you know, a lot of them do have stances like this, but that's normally, you know, it's understandable. But when it comes to this, it's a little bit too much for me. That and the fact that because she's kneeling, they had to make her the same size means that she is hilariously oversized. Like, she does have decent articulation. She doesn't have any head articulation, and none of these 8 have any head, because this is a kid's line. But the actual limbs themselves, they're just kind of awkward, especially the legs. Like, it's just not as good. Though I will say, she has both of her weapons articulated, so that's pretty cool. Although, weirdly enough, no gimmick. I mean, they could have easily made this like a spring or something, or you actually can move these wings out, which is pretty cool, but they could have made that like a button that you press and they spring up. I mean, I don't mind it. The lack of a gimmick doesn't really ruin it for me. I just wish that she was in a more natural pose, so it'd be a little bit more versatile. Or not do that. Next up, we got Matoro, and he's dead. Do you get it? Matoro died. That's the only thing people remember him for. Do you get it? Do you get it now? Alright, well, all jokes aside, it is kind of weird that you have a character whose legacy is that he dies and is the one-time Bionicle actually made you cry. Have a Happy Meal toy. It's just kind of weird. It'd be like if they had a Dinobot for a Beast Wars toy line, or Rhinox and a Beast Machines toy line. Now, when it comes to the actual design, I know some people don't really like this version of Matoro because he's kind of awkward. He's got a hunchback. He's got kind of a baby face going on. When you compare it to his 2006 counterpart, it is quite different. But this is why I really like the Toa Mari, because they actually capture the personality of the characters they're supposed to be. And Matoro here was always kind of the awkward, smart character back when he was a Matoran. This doesn't look like Matoro. This does. I know some people may think this isn't a good fit for the character, but that's mostly just because they assume that Matoro's only thing is that he died, so it has to be, heroic. But no, this actually captures him perfectly well. I also like how they brought back the old Toa feet. He's got the old Toa Mata feet. This is all well and good, but this figure is unfortunately not that great, unfortunately. Again, he's kind of got the same thing that Hahli does, where it's in this really dynamic pose and the articulation isn't that, useful. His legs are okay, though he does have some trouble standing up. You gotta have him really hunched over for him to stand up. You'd think that wouldn't be an issue because of all the weight that's going with the weapons being pointed forward, but no. However, the real issue with this figure is his shoulders. He has the worst shoulder articulation I've ever seen. Except for the Toa Metru. Oh! This one in particular is really bad. This is the worst shoulder articulation I've ever seen on a figure. I can't believe that this McDonald's toy has bad articulation. He does almost make up for it with his weapons being articulated. He has 2 joints with the claw, so that's pretty cool. And again, you can move this up and down, and it's actually the same weapon that the original line had. And this time, I actually do have the cardboard pieces, so looks a little bit better than what I used. Though, what hasn't changed is that if you plug it in, it still falls out, so you gotta make sure that it's balanced correctly. The fact that his arms are permanently drooping, it can be a little difficult, even though it's staying in perfectly fine. You shoot it, and this might hit my face. Oh no, just hit the camera. I really want to like this figure. I really do, because I do like Matoro, but I feel like it would have been an amazing figure if he just had shoulder articulation right here instead of right here. I know that this is supposed to be a part of the shoulder, and it does look a little thin, but look at that. That's already pretty thin. Couldn't be too hard to just have it plug into the head and have them move up and down. Oh well, I mean, and the fact that this exists is still cool enough. Alright, so next up we got the 2 Toa that were missing last time are here and represented. And first we're going to start off with Kongu. It's really weird to think because last time he was just kind of a generic green dude, but they made Kongu the big bulky guy. He's got a big physique and he's got 2 guns for his hands. And of course he has them that you can plug both of them in. One right here. One right here. Yarg, she blows. Oh god, I hit myself in the eye. Oh no. I don't even know where the other one went. Well shit. Found it. Unlike the previous 2, he's at the normal scale, although he is a little bit short, don't know why, and he has the normal articulation. So yeah, arms, legs, and weapons both move. And because of the fact that they're not in any dynamic pose, that actually is useful. So yeah, Kongu is quite nice. Definitely the best of the Toa Mari that we've seen so far. And finally, we at last have the brown Toa represented, Toa Neparu. What? Toa Neparu? Not Hyuki? Oh, really? Listen, alright, you know, I can understand Hahli being used twice. She's kind of the leader of the group right now because, you know, it's underwater, she's blue. That makes a lot of sense. And Matoro, come on, he's like the face of 2007. That makes sense. But was Neparu really that important to get twice? Twice? We even get a black Baraki in the set. You're really telling me they had to use Neparu again? And not Hyuki? You know what this means? We did not get all 6 of the Toa represented. Because Hyuki didn't get a single figure once.
Ugh, but Mr. T, tell Hyuki's yellow, he's not brown.
Shut up. Man, I feel bad for that poor dude. Maybe he's going off banging this last, forget her name is, but that's probably my biggest disappointment. Because I really like Hyuki. I think he's got a unique design.
Ugh, but Mr. T, Toa Hyuki is considered one of the worst Bionicle sets of all time. Who really cares?
Alright, well yeah, he is a bit controversial, but still, this guy's not very popular either. And he actually has a good color scheme. Instead of just being black and silver, he's still black and yellow. What were they thinking? McDonald's. A multi-billion-dollar company that doesn't give a fuck about its consumers. 16 years ago. Can you change this? Can you fix this problem? Because I'm a fucking grown man crying about this. Thank you. Alright, let's get past all of that. And let's not whine about what's not here. And instead talk about what is. How is the figure itself? It's actually not too bad. Unfortunately, mine is very, very loose in all of the joints. But I'll live. He has the standard 4 points. And once again, he has movable weapons. So that's nice. But his gimmick is an interesting one. He has a missing hand, and you gotta plug in his shield. And you ready for the gimmick? You ready? God, man, that was pretty fun. That was pretty cool. You know what? Fuck Hyuki. Get the fuck out of here. Neparu is definitely the winner.
I used to have to go out to do that.
So now that was all the heroes. A little bit disappointing. All of them had their issues. Hahli and Matoro were kind of awkward with their articulation, even though they technically had the joints. Kongu was a little short, but otherwise was pretty good. And Neparu, just, while he is a cool figure, is kind of bland, and to be honest, it really should have been Hyuki. But hey, you know what? The Baraki are probably my favorite parts of 2007, so hopefully these are a little better. This figure fucking sucks. Nah, I'm kidding. Kalmah here is, I'm not sure he's the leader. Oh wait, no, he isn't the leader. You know who's the leader? Not represented! Anyways, Kalmah here himself, you kind of had to have him because they're not going to have a Jawler, so you got to have the red Baraki. And while he's a little bit on the bulky side, like he's a bit bigger too, and he's a little bit with his interesting stance, I think overall he's a lot more standard and a little bit more subtle about it, so he's still pretty enjoyable. And also, comparing the two, he actually has a normal shoulder articulate. Like, it does go out a little bit far, but, you know, it's still not as bad as, like, this. Like, well, what is that? Now, the cool thing about the Baraki is that they're all based off of specific animals. Sea animals, that is. And Kalmah is supposedly based off of a squid. Now, at first, I didn't get it. I thought he was based off of an eel, but that's mostly because I didn't have his accessory at first, but I got it in the second lot that I had. And upon getting this, it does totally look like a squid tentacle, so yeah, that makes sense. And just like Neparu, he has pretty much the same gimmick. Spins, it's fun. However, you do have to be careful because it will smack itself in the face a lot or just touch the ground, so it has to be out like that and just doesn't look as effective as a spinning shield right in front of you. Also, with his head shape, yeah, that's pretty squiddy. It's not my favorite figure and not even my favorite Baraki, but you know what? I still like it.
I used to have to go out to do that.
Okay, Takadox. This is my favorite figure in all three lines, gotta be honest. There are some cool ones as well, you know, Vezok, some of the figures next time, like Azathoth, I don't remember. But I still remember when I thought that there was only a 2008 wave, and I had vague memories of the 2006 one. And I did have a couple of the Baraki. I had Elec and Takadox, and while none of them were complete, once I figured out that this exists, a little McDonald's figure of Takadox, I thought that was the coolest thing. And fortunately, he does not disappoint. I feel like this one could definitely benefit from some head articulation because unlike the others where it isn't really complex, they very easily could have worked something in there. But you know what? Everything else is fine. You got some arm articulation, leg articulation, very, very standard. Although, weirdly enough, despite the fact that he is known for his big scythes, because he's based off of some water mantis thing, he has a gun. And yeah, that's the gimmick. I am not firing this at my face. It's kind of funny that they have the little eel painted on there and molded on there, and then, you know, you just have the card there. Cool. Takadox is missing some of the bright colors that I associate with the character, but you know what? I'm not going to complain. I still really like this one, and this is easily my favorite of the group.
I used to have to go out to do that.
Mantax. He's kind of boring. Well, boring for Baraki standards. He's probably the most uninteresting one of the six, so I feel like they could have, if they're not going to have Hyuki, they could have easily replaced him with Prydock. But you know what, as far as he goes, he's not bad. He is the only figure of the 8 to not have any articulation when it comes with the weapons, and still has no head articulation, and doesn't really capture the whole manta ray thing, because, yeah, from the name, this thing's supposed to be based off of a manta ray. You can actually see it when it comes to the actual figure, but when it comes to this figure, not so much. And while the detailing isn't bad, I don't know why, but for some reason, this figure always reminds me of circus peanuts. It feels like it's made out of circus peanuts, because this is one of the few ones that I actually had as a kid, and I always felt like he was made of circus peanuts. Maybe that's just a me thing. In fact, I'm wagering to bet, yeah, that's just a me thing, and I'm really stupid. Now, despite the fact that he doesn't have any weapon articulation, he still does have a decent gimmick. He's got glowy eyes, and it still works. Ooh, it's pretty cool. Almost like he's got glowing eyes for the horrors of the deep, because he's in the deep, because he's a sea creature.
I used to have to go out to do that.
Alright, that just leaves us with Carapar. And the cool thing here,
We finally have a...
brown figure.
And, of course, inevitably...
It's actually one of my favorites in the entire line, and it is very good. This was the last Baraki that I got, because I got the other 3 in my initial lot that I got with the 2006 ones. And because this is the one that I knew about the least before getting these, and he looked kind of generic and boring at first, I thought I wouldn't like this figure that much, but no, I gotta say, he's up there with Takadox as one of my favorites out of the 3 lines. Now, of course, because he is a brown, or excuse me, yellow figure, he is made entirely of yellow with a little bit of gray. Not actually accurate, it was a bit of a bronze gold color. The yellow itself is pretty inaccurate. You know what this really could have been good for? But you know what, despite the fact that it is inaccurate, it looks pretty good. And he does, of course, have some satisfying articulation. And speaking of satisfying, I think one of the reasons why I like this guy is he is chunky. He's based off of a crab, and you can kind of see that with his claw, which does move, and you can also move this weapon, even if it's just a little bit. But because of how satisfying and tight the joints are, and the fact that he's also pretty big, like an armored crab, he's just a really satisfying and cool one to have. I really like this guy. And of course, he does have a slot for these. You know what? For old time's sakes, let's just hit me in the face. And that's Bionicle's 2007 Toamari and Paraka set. And are you fucking serious? This set is fucking terrible. There we go. Now it's good. The funny thing about that is that I was actually going to put a real Towahyuki minifigure there because I bought one off of eBay, and I bought it like 2 weeks ago, and it shipped at a reasonable time, but for over a fucking week, it got immediately lost. Nobody knows where it is. And I've been waiting. I've been putting off recording this outro just to make that joke, waiting for them to fucking deliver that so I can just be like, oh, there's Towahyuki. But it's gone too long. I spent $5 on the shipping when the actual minifigure was $1. I spent way too much on the shipping, and it's the worst shipping I've ever had, and I don't want it anymore! So I think out of all 3 years, this obviously has the best designs, but unfortunately I can't say it's the best, because while there are certain figures that I do love, Carapar, Takadox, and Kongu are all really cool, these two they're okay. He's cool, but I could have lived without him, and these two figures are just kind of not very great. It's unfortunate. I feel like this line is a little bit too inconsistent. Now granted, it's really only 2. Okay, maybe 3 if you count him, even though he's not really that much of a big deal. And he's also a little tiny. It's a little too inconsistent, and what I like about the other lines is that they're all consistent. They're just figures that, move like a Kenner Star Wars toy and look good, they capture the character, and they get the latter parts right, but they forgot the former. So unfortunately, I do have to say that out of the 3, this is probably the weakest, and I don't like saying that. But who am I kidding? This is still one of the best McDonald's lines ever, just not as good as the other 2. Alright, that's about it. The 2007 Bionicle done. 2 down, 1 to go.